Welcome to Kumbasoft DPAA tutorials. This tutorial is part 1 of 3 of the aggregated probe view and the variety of things that you can do. We're just going to introduce you to the product, to this part of the tool, because it can get very complicated over time of all the different things that you can see and the things that you can do. So to get started, I've selected a couple of appliances through this category, and I've selected a couple of domains. I've gone to Find Objects. I've selected Multi-Protocol Gateway. You're not limited to one service type. You can use, you can select all your different service types to support probes. And I've already searched, sorted, and selected the services that we want to see. Now, I want you to take note. These are services across 2 different domains of 2 different appliances, which is why we call this the aggregated probe view. To get started, we have a hamburger menu over on the right-hand side over here, and if you select that, there are a number of options available in the menu that are specific to when you select services supporting probes. So I have the ability to enable probes for the selected service objects, and you're going to find that this is useful if someone else needs to look at probes and they don't have access to DPAA. You can turn probes on for someone else. You can set the probe transaction history to some quick values. It may not be exactly what you want, and if you want 99 of them, well, okay, but this one gives you the quick way to set probe transaction history. But you're going to find within the aggregated probe view, this isn't as important. Again, if someone else is looking at them and they need quite a number of them, you can set it very quickly for all the selected services in all the domains and all the appliances you have selected. You have the ability to flush probes, and again, this would be useful for someone else not having DPAA, and we can disable the probes. So if we've turned them on for someone else, we have the ability to turn them off. Now, you'll know if probes are on in a particular domain, and you'll see this in a moment because there'll be an icon that shows up over here next to the domains and whether you have them selected or not, and we'll show you what that icon looks like. But for us, and those of you who have access to DPAA, and those members of you who have access to DPAA, basically all you need to worry about is this Show Probes option. And what this is going to do is when I select that option, I get the aggregated probe view window, and DPAA has turned the probes on for all of those services that I had selected. Now, if probes are already on, it won't turn them back on, but if they're off, it'll turn the probes on, and it'll start pulling probe information off of the appliances and showing the transaction information in here. Now, we have some other controls up here that are useful to us while we're looking at the aggregated probe view, and that is we have the transaction history we can set, and that'll set it for all the services. We have a refresh mode, which is basically in the default mode, all these controls across here are basically allowing you to control what you see and how you see it. So by default, the refresh mode is append. You can also replace, which means it's only going to show you the probes that you would see on the box at any given time. That's similar to what you would see in the Data Power appliance itself. Now, you might notice that, hey, that was a little slow. Why did it take so long? Well, it's not because of the frequency of the number of transactions that are showing up in the appliances. It's because we're pulling service information and probe information from multiple domains, multiple appliances, and multiple services all at once. So that's something that is it's as if you went to opened up 4 or 5 different windows, and even this simple example, you would have to have 6 windows open because of 2 appliances, 3 services, and 2 domains. You would have to have 6 windows open, and you have to go refresh to get the probes to show up. And as you know, in Data Power, those will just fly off the box if your transaction history is not set very high. Well, with DPAA, you might be encouraged to set the transaction history a little lower. It won't affect the boxes as much. In DPAA, when in append mode, it actually just keeps appending those transactions. And unlike Data Power, in DPAA, these transactions will not roll off. They will not disappear. They will, you're looking at a transaction sometimes, and the information just goes away because that transaction is rolled off the buffer. That won't happen in DPAA. So you can keep this auto refresh mode on. Now, I've turned it off because I've got a number of transactions, but when this is on, it just keeps appending the list with more and more transactions from the different services within the domains. Now, this is set by default to refresh every 5 seconds, but if it can't do it, this is a best effort. So if it can't pull all the information, I mean, you could have 20 appliances and 30 services and, you know what I mean, who knows how many things you're trying to pull information from, then DPAA won't try to step on itself. It's going to say, okay, I'm going to try to pull it in 5 seconds, but if it takes longer than 5 seconds, then I'm not going to try to pull it again until it finishes what it did before. But once you have some transactions, you can turn that off. And if you're in append mode, you can turn it back on and get some more transactions if you're not seeing what you're looking for. We also have the ability to flush probes, but again, this would be more useful to someone else who might be looking at probes, and maybe you want to see probes at the same time, but they want to see the probes on the box, and they don't have access to DPAA. This button is only of minor use to you. This will clear the probes off of the appliances. When we started this window, the probes were turned on for these services, then the probes are in fact still on for these services. But when we close this window, this checkbox determines whether or not we want to also disable the probes when we close this window, and by default that's on. Now the beauty of this is when you have such a complex situation, now again, I've got 2 domains, 2 appliances, many different services selected. I don't want to have to go back through and disable the probes on each one, and quite frequently you forget to do so, and sometimes you leave your probes on by accident. Well, the beauty of this tool is when I open this window, it turned on the probes. By default, when I close this window, it will turn off the probes. So that's a very convenient thing to us. Now in the transaction display, we have more information than we would normally find within a DataPower appliance. One, because you can aggregate probes across appliances, we need to show you the appliance from which the transaction came. Because we can aggregate across domains, we need to show you the domain from which the transaction came. Because we can aggregate across service types, we only did multi-protocol gateways, but we can see then transactions across these different service types. So we need to show you the service type and then also the service name. So you're not going to get these 4 columns in DataPower at all, because it doesn't show these to you because it doesn't need to the way it's been configured. Some other information that's very useful to you in here and beyond what DataPower shows you is the transaction time. You don't see this in DataPower, but you can see the time this transaction occurred, so you can know when it happened on the particular appliance domain and service. We also show you the global transaction ID, and this can be very useful to you. We'll show you in another video where this becomes useful to you, but we show you the global transaction ID, and of course you get the other information you ordinarily would want to see within the transaction manifest list. So one other neat feature that you can do here that you know is not so easy in DataPower itself is I can sort. So if I select a column, I can sort by certain things, and of course I can also move columns around. I don't have to leave them the way they are. So that's kind of a nice convenient to you as well. So you want to watch the other 2 videos on this. This is all we're going to cover within this one, but things can get pretty complex. And again, when I go and close this window, I've turned the probes off, and you can see the stethoscope was on. See, that stethoscope icon indicates to you that we turned the probe settings on, and here in a few seconds this will actually go away if we wait long enough. This doesn't refresh immediately, but it will go away here in a little bit short period of time. So just wanted to let you see that and let you know that that's how the aggregated probe view gets turned on. You can see the transactions and you can append them and see the various things you need to see. So if you have any comments, suggestions, and certainly go watch the other 2 videos, or you want a free trial, go to www.kumbasoft.com, put in your contact information. Somebody from Kumbasoft will be getting back to you. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.